2. All right, guys, you know what they say. There's only one October. Is that where we're going with this year? No? Welcome to Rocktober? No.
Sure.
This time it counts? Wrong league. Time. Okay. Welcome to the MLB postseason, specifically Division Series edition of On the Sports Lines. Let's get this thing started, shall we? I'm Steven Rabinowitz.
I'm Jay Kaplan, and to me, it just ain't October baseball unless the Yankees are in it.
I'm at this Strait and way to rub salt on open wound, Jay. I mean,
Sorry,
Jesus,
dude. It's
look,
that's just the Yankee fan in me coming out.
Look.
I feel your pain, man.
We have salt.
Yeah, I get to bury my team later on in the show, but
Yep.
the only good thing about this, I get to watch as a spectator with no rooting interest, so I don't have the anxiety that obviously you Yankee fans have every October
yeah.
or even last.
Rogers Center is hell.
Yeah, or even last October when the Mets were heavily involved in the postseason. So I can just kick back and relax and be more fan analyst than anxiety-driven fan who don't know what to do with themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Don't worry, Anthony. We're going to be Salt Bay later on and really put some salt in those wounds. But today we talk about the forbidden words. Playoff? We're talking about the MLB playoffs. We are talking about the New York Yankees upcoming meeting with the Toronto Blue Jays. We're talking the rest of the Division Series, and yes, the Mets postmortem says their 2025 season doesn't even make it to October this year. You can talk about whatever you want, except Bruno. We don't talk about Bruno. If you subscribe to our Facebook and YouTube pages, / on the sports lines, for both. Okay, so before we talk about the baseball, we talk about the gridiron first. Let's get some gridiron talk in. New York Giants quarterback Jaxson Dart, we talked about right before his first start last week against the undefeated Chargers. We all came to the same conclusion. Tough situation, but the move had to be made. Kids, dividends paid right away. A 21-18 win at home last Sunday. Although Jackson went let's face it, a mediocre 13 of 20, 111 yards, and 1 TD. We Giants fans know if you put a 1 in the win column, we don't really care. Jay, it was a good weekend for Ole Miss last week. Won't talk about the second thing, but dissecting Ole Miss rookie's first start in the pros.
Yeah, I definitely.
Technically, I know you wanted Anthony to go first, but we're already here.
That's fine. I mean, look, I watched the game, in its entirety. And then I kind of went back, and as you guys know, there's a couple of channels on YouTube that I follow that kind of that are run by a couple of former pro quarterbacks who really dive into the all 22, and you get to see how things play out from views you don't necessarily see during the game. So I kind of did some film breakdown. It was a solid, Rabbi, to use your term, serviceable debut by the rookie out of Ole Miss. Numbers weren't spectacular, but he made enough plays to help the Giants get their first win of the season. 13 of 20 at 65% completion, 111 yards. It's only 5.6 per attempt and 8.5 per completion. 1 TD, no picks, 96 passer rating. Ran for 54 yards. We knew they were going to utilize his legs on 10 carries. It's 5.4 a pop. 5 first downs off runs. Capped the Giants' 9-play, 89-yard opening drive with a 15-yard TD run off a design quarterback draw, becoming the first quarterback since Patrick Mahomes to lead his team on an 80-plus yard TD drive on the first possession of his first career start. He was under pressure on 37.9% of his dropbacks, resulting in a 21.1 bad throw percentage. He took 5 sacks, where he lost 7.3 total EPA, where 4 of them were due to his lack of experience, where after a protection change or a line shift, he didn't read the unblocked pass rusher coming at him. And I'll get into one of those instances in a second. But he avoided the big turnover, got the ball out of his hands quickly. He averaged 2.39 seconds from snap to throw. Without the sacks, his EPA per play would have been plus 0.21. Due to the sacks, it was 0.01. The other next-gen stats that stood out to me, 53% success rate overall, but minus 7.9% completion percentage over expected. And the big difference between his average depth of target, which was 7.1, and the average depth of his completions, which is 3.5. All right, let's dive into some plays here. I'm going to focus on 4 particular ones, give you my take. The first one I started the segment with, that 15-yard TD run. First quarter, 9:25 left, 1st and 10, Charger 15. Lead draw, Scatterboo was the lead blocker. They ran it out of what the what they call a pro concept, which is the reverse of the RPO concept. It's pass run option. In pro, you check the box. If it's heavy, you throw. If it's light, you run. Dart check. He had a trip situation, 3 wide receivers to his left, saw the light box, ran and scored. Excellent utilizing of his legs. He had the next one up, 18-yard completion to Darius Slayton for a 3rd down conversion. First quarter, 4:11 left. 3rd and 6. Giants deep in their own end at their own 5. Had 2 wide receivers to the right, 1-on-1 to the left. Took first look at the 1-on-1, covered, moved to his right, out of the pocket as it broke down. Had to resort to a scramble drill. Extended the play, waved Slayton to come back to him, hit him in the numbers, 1st down. Solid execution all the way around there, making something happen off schedule. First sack he took of the 5. Second quarter, 7:29 left, 2nd and 5. Giants at their own 45. Motion left to right, indicating man-to-man. Both safeties near the line of scrimmage, indicating likely cover 0 with pressure coming. 3 rushers on each side of the line of scrimmage. Protection appeared to be focused on 3 rushers to the left, leaving an unblocked rusher on the right. After the motion, Giants were in a 3-by-1 set with 3 to the left, 1 to the right in a 1-on-1 matchup. Dart went immediately to the 1-on-1 matchup to his left, was late in releasing the ball, never saw the unblocked rusher on his blind side, got slammed. Has to either slide the protection or recognize where the unblocked rusher is coming from and go to the hot read to that side at the snap. That is something that will come with experience. Lastly, first touchdown pass, 3rd quarter, 2:54 left, 2nd and goal, at the Chargers 3. 3-yard shovel pass to tight end Theo Johnson as he came across the field behind the offensive line, which was blocking as if they were running a counter-type run. Giants lined up with 2 wide receivers to the right and Scatterbo on Dart's right in the backfield. Dart showed some nice ball handling, reading the defensive lineman on that side, faking the toss to Scatterbo before shoveling it to Johnson, who knifed into the end zone. Nice execution of a creative play call. And Rabbi, you and I have talked about this. Creativity in offensive play calling is not something we've seen a lot of from the Dable-Kafka combination since they've been here. Overall, I saw some good things. It helped that the offensive scheme was somewhat tailored to what Dart is comfortable with. Scheming his first read open, not putting a lot of full field reads on his plate, and only putting him under center for 9 of 74 snaps. He practically was exclusive out of the shotgun at Ole Miss. There was some recognition of coverage changes post-snap. There was some checking into a better play when he saw something pre-snap. His arm talent was fully on display, giving his receivers chances to make plays. But there were also plenty of pass plays where it looked like if his first read wasn't there, he was taking off, or the minute he felt his protection waver just a little bit, he was taking off. He was looking to run as opposed to stepping up or to the side, keeping his eyes downfield to find a receiver. Sometimes he made a positive play with his legs. Other times he took those sacks. He needs to clean up his footwork, get through his progressions a little quicker, and throw the ball away when necessary to avoid those sacks. The tendency to drop his eyes when feeling pressure was a negative on the pre-draft scouting report, as was the concern over his lack of full field reads and how he'd do when his reads aren't predetermined and structured. We saw both of those issues at play during this game. Part of this is that Lane Kiffin did such a good job scheming up Dart's first read it open at Ole Miss that he really had to go through a full field progression. Staring down your first read in the NFL will result in a quick gain if he's open, but if not, it could lead to sacks and interceptions. I talked about all this on the draft show when Dart was picked. The thing that was concerning was him seeking contact when using his legs. Doing a stiff arm with his throwing hand? He was exposed to hits on 47% of his plays. That is not sustainable. He's making himself a target. He may have been able to get away with it at Ole Miss, but he cannot keep putting himself at risk like that. Got to learn to get out of bounds. Got to learn to slide. He's going to take plenty of hits when he's in the pocket, as defensive coordinators across the NFL are going to start sending all types of pressures and blitzes at him to see how he reacts. He has to limit the hits on the runs, designed or otherwise. Learning on the job against the defenses he's going to see may not be pretty, but this is the current state of things in the NFL with quarterbacks picked in the first round. We'll see if he fails the Giants or if the Giants, as in Dable and Kafka, fail him.
And I think one thing that you saw is like that if you do exactly what he did, he's going to get himself injured, especially with the defense he's going to play, including Philly, twice in 3 weeks coming up. He's going to get himself injured very, very quickly.
Yep.
Anthony, you saw some other things on the other side of the ball, and I think it's kind of the same thing. It's good. There's more that needs to be done. But again, it needed to be done.
Yeah, I saw what I just see is that he brought a renewed energy to this team. I mean,
Yeah, without a doubt.
you saw it in the preseason, and the game we particularly against the Jets. He's fired up. He's very animated on the sideline. He's consistently interacting with his teammates between plays. Um, and he showed some toughness too. I mean, the guy he was sacked 5 times in the game. This is with returning Andrew Thomas to the offensive line. On top of the fact that he had to go through a concussion protocol, he tweaked his hamstring.
That's right.
So this ain't just a normal full start. He took a beating somewhat out there. And yeah, like you said, Jay, he been along the slide to get out of bounds very quickly. Or those opposing defense going to shorten his rookie season very fast.
Oh yeah.
But one of the things I did see yesterday, seen last week, particularly on that touchdown drive, was his ability to command the offense, not make any mistakes. So even on the touchdown run, his very elaborate dance celebration, which let's be honest, if I tried 1,000 times, I couldn't pull off. You saw the crowd reaction when he comes out during the introductions.
Mhm.
And you saw it a little bit on the defense as well. The defense played a lot more attention, a lot more energy. Really
Yeah.
got after it. You saw the big interception in return by Dexter Lawrence. I've been kind of harping on, when's he going to show up? When's he going to finally
Mhm.
show up? And he was able to do that. The Giants defense was able to get a couple of sacks on Justin Herbert. But also, more importantly, is the fact that the Giants never trailed in this game. I
Nope.
mean, we really seen the Giants fall behind and just pretty much that's all she wrote. And the offense was able to stay on the field a little bit. I mean, they actually won the time of possession this time around, as
Yeah.
opposed to a Chargers team that came in previously unbeaten, and with a defense that had been playing really good for the first 3 weeks of the season to start out. Um, a lot of things that he has to obviously clean up. I think he has to really take more what the defense is giving him if it's short underneath passes. Um, Try to hang in the pocket a little bit, try to give his receivers a little more time. But among the other things too is it just you saw like a night and day reaction with the offense when Dart was quarterback as opposed to Russell Wilson, who by the way he gave Russell Wilson and James Winston a lot of credit, helping him prepare for the week. So I give Jaxson Dart a lot of credit for that. But you can just see like with Wilson, the offense didn't quite seem like it was all there. Not to mention, it seemed like he wasn't willing to take chances. Whereas Dart, you saw it early on, he's throwing it downfield, he's giving his receivers the opportunity to try to make plays. And I think that's something that does kind of resonate with the rest of the receiving core. And obviously, Rabbi, you'll talk about that in a second. But I do think has the offensive playbook opens up a little more. That Dart's gonna be a little more comfortable. And yeah, I think that right now the Giants organization needs some kind of hope. It needs something to kind of hang its hat on and kind of build forward. I I do saying that the Giants should proceed with caution. Remember Daniel Jones' first start against Tampa Bay in that memorable cover behind game, and we all thought, okay, maybe the Giants is going that right direction. And obviously, we see how Jones is doing now. More the organizational failure than Daniel Jones himself.
Yep.
I do think that they're going to have to they need to kind of bring him along slowly, let him develop naturally. But yeah, so far so good. He didn't put up crazy numbers. I mean, he did what he had to do, but more importantly, he got the win. And at least at the
Mhm.
very least, that's a
Yeah.
good start moving forward.
He
Yeah,
couldn't put up. Go ahead.
yeah, just the only thing that concerns me is that you and I, the three of us, we all know that like one of the best friends that a young developing quarterback can have um is an offense that will lean into a running game, whether that's, outside runs, power runs, whatever it is. The thing is that going heavy personnel and leaning into a heavy running game, while those may make sense theoretically for to keep a quarterback off of the hot seat, it kind of runs counter to what Dart's used to and comfortable with as a quarterback. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, the only problem is, thank you, that actually sets it up perfectly, is the fact that their best
I
weapon
knew
right
what I was
now.
doing.
No, you didn't. I would say their best oh my God, their best weapon right now is Cam Scadaboo, right? Because of the injury to Malik Neighbors in the game, because of it was just a unfortunate pass that Dart threw because of the fact that an offsides was called, so it was a free play, and it just ended up being a little more of a wounded duck than I think he wanted it to be. Wasn't a hospital ball, but it was a ball that had basically a feast or famine possibility, and it turned out to be
Yeah,
famine.
not sure that had a high percentage of catchability.
It had no
preternatural skills.
Yeah, and again, it was too high, and it ended up being pretty bad. So Neighbors is pretty much done for the season. So you have a team that really doesn't have any weapons right now. And that's going to be a problem because you saw that in the second half, especially. Again, I'm not criticizing Jaxson Dart, but one of the biggest reasons is that he got those 2 touchdowns later in the game, or most of their points, is because the field was literally 25 yards long because of interceptions that was caused by the Giants. Even playing just 23 of 69 snaps in that game, Neighbors still finished second on the Giants with 20 receiving yards on 3 catches. So now you have Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, Jalen Hyatt, Bo Collins, Gunnar Olszewski, and if I'm a defensive coordinator, I'm worried more about that big guy in the backfield and Scadaboo more than anybody else. You might want to use Singletary in some passing situations where maybe use Singletary as a running back and try to see if you can just put Scadaboo out there like it's an Alabama offensive lineman running a play like you may have saw last week. Like, I ain't tackling that. But Slayton's going to be the key, in my opinion, too. That's the guy who is going to be the faster player in the game. Robinson can be a deep threat. He had a very good game against Dallas. Slayton did have the most yards on Sunday last Sunday with 3 catches, 4 targets, 44 yards. Now, the question is, and I think even though the Giants have a terrible salary cap situation, they can pretty much not know, but they have no assets, I think they need somebody to at least be a weapon for Dart. It's not necessarily a playoff push, but this is something to get Dart's development up. You don't want a Neighbors-like player, but you want somebody who you can rely on. Not necessarily a number 1, but a steady number 2 or number 3. Ironically enough, there are some players out there who are free agents. They're not great. Robert Woods, Tyler Boyd, Mecole Hardman. They're names that we've seen before that can be in the rotation. I like little Jordan Humphrey, who's right now on their practice squad, who had a decent preseason, just didn't fit in a role. Now he might. The trade-out market is also always going to be a name, but Tyreek Hill just got injured. That would have been a name that would have been in there. Jacoby Myers would be the biggest name out there, but I don't know how much they want to, with Brock Bowers' injuries in Las Vegas, let Myers lean on that. Theo Johnson's also going to be a big key. He's starting to get offensive snaps better, and he's starting to become a reliable offensive weapon, and 2 tight end sets are going to be huge for the Giants going forward, because all I got to say is this. You need groceries to shop yourself up the charts, as it's a little bit of the Bill Parcells adage. And
I know
you need the groceries to kind of make yourselves a better recipe. And right now, you're even in games like they play tomorrow when, as we tape this, against New Orleans. I'm not 100% sure that Jaxson Dart will have the better groceries in any matchup right now for the rest of the season, and that's not great. By the way.
Go ahead, Rabbi. Finish up.
No, go ahead. What
I wanted to say was the interesting thing is you look at that wide receiver room now, and look, we know Slayton's been a 1 before. He was a 1 in
He's a 1 in game only.
But look, he's been the Giants' leading receiver at various points during his career there. So it's not like he's unfamiliar in that role, and it's not like he has a problem accepting and being the guy to do that job. Whether he does it at the elite level is not the point. The fact is he knows how to do that job. We know what Wan'Dale can bring. He's shown us that he has, more than just, the quick out, 5.7 yards per catch. We know he can make plays. He's gotten a chance to show it. I think the spotlight of the receivers is going to be on Jalen Hyatt. I was not crazy about this draft pick. I did not think the offense that he came out of in college was going to translate to the NFL. He has not shown an ability to really run a full route tree. To me, this is his biggest and potentially last opportunity to make a case for himself as an NFL wide receiver because he's now the third guy. They are going to give him chances to do what he supposedly does best, which is be able to take the top off of defense. The question is, now that he's going to get some snaps because they don't have a choice, it's put up or shut up time for Jalin Hyatt.
Yeah, let's see what happens. By the way, I love Jay's takes on video, but if he gives any more takes, it might ruin the friendship between us just because of the fact that it's going to make me mad about all of his inaccuracies. So do it, but
wow! Where are my inaccuracies?
Do it, but only his inadequacies is what I meant to say. So do it, but only do it. Do it, but only do it sparingly. Okay. Wow. In the words of Mike Singletary, I want more winners. So let's head to the MLB playoffs where the New York Yankees, after vanquishing the Boston Red Sox for the first time in the playoffs since me and Anthony were sophomores in college, that's 2003, find themselves playing a team that hasn't won a playoff game in 9 years in the Toronto Blue Jays. We have a first-time playoff matchup between two teams who ended their 2025 season the same, record of 94-68, but Blue Jays won the season series 8-5, so they get the home field advantage starting today. Let's shine a hitter under the microscope for the reigning AL champs. Jay, give me a subject.
There are no inadequacies over here, young man.
I'm talking about Dart, not necessarily about you.
That was not clear the first time. All right, appreciate it. All right, so I mean, look, it may be the captain obvious choice, but when you consider the stark difference between Aaron Judge's regular season production and his postseason production, or lack thereof, he's going to be the pick, for Yankee hitter under the microscope until he changes the narrative that surrounds him once the calendar flips to October. Judge had another MVP level regular season, won his first batting title, hitting a major league best 331. The next closest player hit 311. He won the slash line triple crown, leading Major League Baseball in batting average, on base 457. The next closest player 399, slugging 688. Next closest player 589. He also had a major league best 1.14 OPS. The next closest player 959. He had a 204 weighted runs created plus. Next closest player 161. Baseball Reference wins above replacement, 9.7. Next closest player, 8 flat. Fangraphs wins above replacement, 10.1. Next closest player, 9.1. He also led the American League in runs scored with 137, walks with 124, and total bases with 372. His 53 home runs, second in the American League to Cal Raleigh's 60 and fourth in all of Major League Baseball, are the most ever by a batting champion. We talked about the huge disparity in regular season production versus postseason production when we previewed the Yankees postseason last October, when Judge was coming off another epic MVP type season when he led all of Major League Baseball in just about every counting stat and advanced metric, only to disappear in the postseason. In 14 games across 64 plate appearances and 49 at-bats, he posted an anemic slash line of 184, 344, 408, and an OPS of 752, a weighted runs created plus of 114 with just 3 homers and 9 RBI. Judge has a career 178 weighted runs created in the regular season. In the postseason, it's just 109. And if you go back to games played in October since 2019, his slash line, 183, 297, 373, a 669 OPS, 9 homers, 19 RBI, 22 runs scored, but 56 strikeouts against just 24 walks in 40 games across 183 plate appearances and 153 at-bats. Those are some very unjudgian numbers. He's off to a slightly better start this October. He went 4 for 11 in the wildcard series against Boston, posting a 364, 417, 364 slash line. Yep, that slugging percentage means all 4 hits were singles for a 780 OPS. Not awful, but again, very unjudgian. He played all 13 regular season games against the Blue Jays and posted offensive numbers that were more around his season average. Had a 325, 518. Yeah, that's a 518 on base slug percentage. 600 slugging percentage for a slash line of 1.118. 3 homers, 6 RBI, 10 runs scored across 56 plate appearances and 48 bats. That on-base percentage is that high because he walked 15 times, 7 of them being intentionally, so it'll be something to keep an eye on, is how often the Blue Jays do this when he steps into the plate. For his career, in 133 games across 570 plate appearances and 467 at bats, Judge has crushed the Blue Jays to a tune of 300, 420, 597 slash line, a 1.017 OPS, 41 homers, 89 RBI, 88 runs scored. In his career against Kevin Gossman, who will be the game one starter for Toronto, Judge has a 354 average with 6 homers and a 1.283 OPS over 61 plate appearances. Judge also has a 935 OPS in 28 plate appearances against Chris Bassett, who could be in line to start game 4 after not pitching in 15 days due to a back injury. Look, this is the type of production the Yankees will need from their captain if they're going to at least advance to the ALCS. This may be the deepest lineup Judge has ever had surrounding him, with 6 other players going yard at least 21 times, 5 of them with an OPS over 800 and a weighted runs created plus above 125. However, at some point, Aaron Judge needs to be the reason why the Yankees win games in October, as opposed to being the excuse for why they lose. This October, with this Yankee team that's peaking at the right time in all phases, is as good as any to change the narrative that he disappears in the postseason when the team needs him the most.
I don't think there's ever been a postseason performer ever, like a regular just postseason player who's considered a star, who has averages in ALDS series of 50, which he did in 2017 against Cleveland, and 63, again, not 630, 063 in that 4-game series 3 years ago against the Astros. So not good, and it is I would say, a black mark on a future Hall of Fame career if it continues. It's not an end-all be-all, but it is. All right, Anthony, after a huge Thursday night, and it makes you say, how can you not be actually romantic about baseball? Let's talk about the pitcher under the spotlight. And it's some good schlit that you are analyzing.
Yeah, but before I do that, I have to address the ugly side of romance. And Jay, you brought this to my attention yesterday.
Yeah.
I read about it too. Look, I have a great respect for the city of Boston. I met some great people. I got friends that live in Massachusetts, obviously.
Got family there.
And I watch the teams. My brother's a diehard Celtics fan and Bruins fan, and I have a couple of people that are fans of the Red Sox. Great people. But when it gets to a point where you're harassing and even sending death threats to the family members of opposing players, it's a bridge too far. I mean, come on, Boston, do better. I mean, look, I'm all for rivalry, I'm all for competition, but just because someone is from the area and is pitching for the opposing team doesn't give you the right to attack them on social media. And granted, Cam Schlittler, for his credit, did have a couple of clapbacks that made me giggle, made me chuckle a little bit. But yeah, Boston fans do better. All right, I was giving credit for Red Sox fans being very friendly, accommodating when I visited the area.
Yeah, same.
It's like, knock it off. I mean, that's what it is. It's I get it. In the season, you're frustrated, but do better. Mm-hmm. And now that I've gotten that out the way, now I can get to the romanticized part of the Cam Schlittler story. And I even joked on Thursday night with the group chat for On the Sports Lines that they need to get his Yankeeography ready pronto, because
saw that text.
Yeah, keep this in mind. Thursday night was his 85th day as a major leaguer. He did not start the season on a big league roster whatsoever. And all he did was he gave the Yankees more than just a decent quality start to put on the bullpen. He gave them a masterpiece, as the great John Miller would say. The first pitcher to log at least 8 scoreless innings. I'm gonna throw a lot of stats and numbers out of here because this is something that we all watched, and everything we saw was unheard of. At least the first pitcher to log at least 8 scoreless innings with 12 plus strikeouts and 0 walks in a game in MLB postseason history on just 107 pitches. Fastball registered between 99 and 100 most of the night. And here's more statistics. The first rookie with 10 strikeouts, 0 walks, 0 runs allowed in a game in MLB postseason history. The first Yankee with 10 strikeouts, 0 walks, and 0 runs allowed in a postseason game. 12 strikeouts on hard pitches, the four-seamer, the sinker, the cutter. He had it all. Everything was going. It was just one of those games that you see. They make a movie out of it. I mean, that's what it's all about. And the fact that yes, he is from as I just mentioned, he is from Massachusetts. He's from the
Walpole.
Walpole area.
Yeah.
So there's another element to that. Obviously, he said that his family has kind of all in on being Yankee fans. I will hope so. If they're good family at all, they ever want to root for me. That's pretty obvious. Even if they have a fair dude bet, it's like, hey guys, you want to vote for me at least? But here's the thing too, and one of the things I was noticing is the fact that it's really just 5 hits, one base runner reached scoring position the entire night.
Yep.
Even as he reached 100 pitches, his fastball was still in the high 90s.
98 on that 100th pitch to close out the 7th.
Yeah, it was like he was just as fresh as he was towards the end of his outing as he was at the very beginning of it.
Mm-hmm.
The first pitcher, age 24 or younger, to record 12 strikeouts in a postseason game. 18 swings and misses, the most in a playoff start by a rookie since Noah Syndergaard did it 10 years ago in his Game 2 start against the Dodgers in the National Division Series for the Mets. Here's another thing, too. According to MLB Pipeline, Sam Dykstra, he had never posted double-digit strikeouts in any game of his professional career. And it's only been 85 days old, so to do this is phenomenal. But here's the thing. But here's what I have brought up when we were talking about the show and our angles. What I am curious to know, because right now he's lined up to be the Game 4 starter, which would be Wednesday night. Mm-hmm. Fried and Rodon, I think he's lined up for 2 and 3 games 2 and 3 respectively for the Yankees. What did the Blue Jays see when they were watching that game? And how are they going to attack Cam if it does get to a Game 4? Because the Red Sox just cannot figure him out. I mean, no. It was like they were late on the fastball. They were out in front on all the other pitches. And the fact that they just could not line up the timing as opposed to the Yankees do that second going through the order, and how they were able to attack early in those second at bats. They didn't make the hard contact, but they hit him where the defense wasn't. And only Rosalio's hit in that inning actually was a solid contact according to ESPN statistics. We'll just tell you, sometimes you just need luck and a little help from a shoddy defense on the Boston Red Sox part to score some runs.
Yeah.
This is a series where the Yankees are going to have to score. They're going to have to get some offense. I don't think they can rely so much on shoddy defense from the opposing team. By the way, Bo Bichette not on the Division Series roster for Toronto, so that could be.
By the way, neither is Bassett. By the way, sorry, Jay.
Oh, okay. I did not realize that. I said he was in line. I hadn't heard otherwise.
Scherzer. So it's right now going to be Savage.
Ooh, Scherzer.
3. Yeah, Scherzer not in either. So it's Savage Game 3 of the rookie from who just. I think is in start number 5, and they're planning probably either a 3 days rest situation or bullpen game in game number 4. So it's interesting.
So we're looking at potentially a bullpen game by the Jays against Schlittler. Okay, so and Anthony, I'll just to answer your question, and to me, this is going to be an interesting matchup, that Blue Jays lineup versus Schlittler, because the Blue Jays lead the major leagues in terms of highest rate of contact. They do, they don't swing and miss a lot. These guys put the ball in play. So they're not going up there, looking to go yard with every swing or taking, corkscrew swings. These guys are very methodical. They are very solid in their approach when they get in the batter's box, and they put bat on ball. So it's going to be interesting to see their ability to make contact going against Schlittler's ability to blow heat and use all of his arsenal to get whiffs. It's going to be interesting to see Rock versus, immovable object, irresistible force. Who's going to win that one? It's going to be interesting.
Yeah, and you got a couple, and you have a guy like George Springer and even Vladdy Jr., who are great fastball hitters throughout their whole careers. It's going to be interesting to see how Aaron Boone also, with his defensive alignment, you got to believe a team that puts that has that higher contact rate, you got to go with your best defense. Your defensive alignment for that game, which could be, coincidentally enough, another elimination game one way or the other, depending on how the first 3 games play out. And obviously, Schlittler has shown he does not shrink to the moment.
No.
It's going to be, can he keep that momentum going? Mm-hmm. can he possibly just simply give the Yankees the opportunity to win Game 4 if it gets to that point? Was basically just keeping guys on base, trusting his defense behind him, and even more so if if the strikeouts aren't coming, just get the outs. That's pretty much what it's all about. When you're a starting pitcher, the match number is 20 is starting pitcher, the rotation all around. The match number 27. That's the amount of outs you need for 9 innings. And every inning, you shrink that number down. And if you need to, you turn on to the bullpen. That's how a rotation and a pitching unit has to work, especially in the postseason, where a quick hook is a lot quicker than a regular season, without question.
And hang on, Rabbi and Anthony, you brought up, how are the Yankees going to generate some offense? This is I found this the other day, and it's going to basically apply to almost all 4 of these series to a certain extent. Yankees led the majors in home runs with 274. Teams that hit homers in the playoffs win. More than 80% of the time, the team with more homers in a game has won in the postseason over the last 5 years, and more than 40% of runs have scored on the long ball in recent postseasons. It's going to be interesting.
So actually, before we move on, I wanted to say some stuff about Schlittler's performance, because I love seeing stuff that I've never seen before.
Yes.
First time in Yankees postseason history, only one other time has you had 8 strikeouts, no walks, while not allowing a run. The only other time that happened was Roger Clemens in the famous throw a broken bat at Mike Piazza game 2 in the 2001 series. Only one other pitcher has had 12 plus strikeouts and no walks in at least 8 innings of work. Tom Seaver in Game 1 of the 73 NLCS, which, by the way, is a game that he lost because he walked off. Johnny Bench walked him off later in that game. Youngest pitcher to have 10 strikeouts and no walks in a playoff game since the Dodgers. Don Newcombe at Game 1 of the 1949 World Series.
Wow.
Third player aged 24 or younger to pitch 8 scoreless innings in a playoff game without allowing a walk. The only other 2 names in that list, 21-year-old Brett Saberhagen in Game 7 of the 85 World Series, and Dizzy Dean in Game 7 of the 1934 World Series.
Yes, House Gang!
And the one fact that I love the most, no 3-ball counts after the second inning.
Wow.
No 3-ball counts for a guy who was notorious in the regular season and some of the starts to be susceptible to the walk.
Wow.
So an amazing performance by Schlittler. Let's see if that happens. So now, guys, for the Blue Jays' first division winner in a decade, I think we have a good candidate for the Blue Jays player I'm looking at. Someone who had a pretty good father figure. Not talking about the eldest daughter of Vladimir Guerrero Jr., but his eldest and Vladimir Guerrero Sr., but his eldest son, and that would be Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Now, talk about Aaron Judge, and we talk about all the stuff that he needs to do in this postseason. You're talking about a guy who has literally said, I would never sign with the Yankees, and the only way I would sign with the Yankees is if I was dead. So now, as he got his $500 million extension in the beginning of the season, it's time to put his money where his mouth is. And here you go. Yankee killer Vladimir Guerrero Jr. now has the postseason spotlight. Again, have mentioned this team has been in the postseason before and got swept by the Mariners in that 2-game series. They also blew a big lead in Game 2 of that series. His numbers this year, not impressive. Impressive enough he led this team too, but he played a full season and he had his least amount of RBIs since 2020, and that was 84, 23 home runs, 94 Ks, a solid average of 292. A lot of people hit that nowadays, but his numbers were okay. It wasn't his MVP form that he's been in from time to time, but the one thing that you're going to want to see from him is this is what he's done in his career against the Yankees. 302, 107. This is in 102 games, by the way. 302, 117 hits, 22 home runs, 74 RBIs, 48 runs scored. 550 slugging percentage, 918 OPS. Those numbers are pretty damn good. But in a sample size of 6 games, again, those 6 games in the postseason, 136, that's 3 for 22, and a 536 OPS. No home runs, 1 RBI. We talked about Aaron Judge before. That's not great either. And as in the last 14 games of this season, as the Jays were pretty much in a pennant race, they clinched, obviously, on the tiebreaker. He hasn't, by the way, hit a home run since September 5th. He went 164, 182 slugging percentage, 375 OPS. So what you're seeing here is a nervous guy. It's a guy who is really the centerpiece of a team that has expectations here. It's not great. Now we know that Bo Bichette is not on this postseason roster, and that's going to be even more of a spotlight for Vladimir Guerrero Jr. This team is not the same team that we saw pretty much in the summer, pretty much all over in the summer, pretty much from June to August. The team that got that big lead and held on to it tightly like it was a snuggie for the final days of the season. So I don't know what to expect from the Blue Jays this season, but if Vladimir, we've said before, if Aaron Judge doesn't do his job, you could still win in spite of him. The Yankees have done that before. If Vladimir Guerrero Jr. doesn't do his job, they don't win. It's pretty simple as that.
Yeah, Rabbi, and I'll tell you, the guy that the version of him that they want to see is the guy who like raked against the Yankees in the regular season. He played all 13 games, 373, 439, 567 slash line, 1007 OPS, 2 homers, 9 RBI, 9 runs scored in the 13 games.
It's an impressive stat line, and we'll see what happens. Now, let's go to the AL series with the other two teams synonymous with postseason success. The Detroit Tigers, who haven't won a division series in 11 years, and the Seattle Mariners, who haven't won a DS in 24. I think I need to look up the word synonymous again. You know, I think Elizabeth Taylor had all of her divorces in a 24-year span. I can't look that up, but I'm pretty sure that is the case. Jay, who's your star watch for the Mariners, who had a strong September to give their first AL West title, to get their first AL West title in almost a quarter of a century?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be Cal Raleigh, right? I mean, come on.
Of course.
Is there any other choice other than the big dumper? I mean, in any other season, a switch hitting catcher who puts up a 247, 359, 589 slash line with a 948 OPS, a 161 weighted runs created plus, a major league leading 60 home runs, an American League leading 125 RBI, 110 runs scored, a 9.1 Fangraphs wins above replacement, and a 7.3 Baseball Reference wins above replacement mark would pretty much be a shoo-in for AL MVP, especially when you lead your team to a division title. That 9.1 Fangraphs WAR is a number reached only by 3 other catchers in MLB history. Their names might be familiar to you. Hall of Famers Johnny Bench, 1972, and Mike Piazza, 1997, and likely future Hall of Famer Buster Posey in 2012. Posey and Bench each won MVP in their respective seasons, posting that number. Unfortunately, the Mariners' backstop plays in the same league as Aaron Judge, and the Yankee captain is in the midst of an epic regular season run of ridiculous production. En route to helping the Mariners clinch the American League West for the first time since 2001, Raleigh became the 7th player in baseball history to hit 60 home runs in a single season, an exclusive club headlined by 3 Yankees, Babe Ruth in 1927, Roger Maris in 1961, and Raleigh's main competition for AL MVP, the aforementioned Judge, in 2022. Raleigh is the only member of this elite club who is a switch hitter, meaning he has to maintain a swing from each side of the plate over the course of the season. He's also the only catcher in that very select club, meaning he's putting up these numbers while also playing the most mentally draining and physically demanding position on the diamond. He won the home run derby, demolished Salvador Perez's previous single-season record for most home runs by a catcher. It was 48 in 2021. And he topped another Yankee legend, Mickey Mantle, who hit 54 in 1961 for the most homers in a single season by a switch hitter. He hit 22 homers from the right side of the plate and 38 from the left side. How's this for some context? Only 7 major leaguers even reached the 38 home run mark this season, and Raleigh did it from one side of the plate. His at-bats in this series against Tigers Cy Young Award-winning ace Tariq Skubal will be appointment viewing. A big reason why Raleigh was able to put up such prodigious numbers this season was an improved OPS as a right-handed hitter against left-handed pitching, going from 696 previously to 1.032 this season against left-handers. Skubal is far and away the best lefty in the game, and his best pitch is his changeup, which he throws more than any other in his arsenal. Raleigh has a 250 average and a 41.9% whiff rate against changeups thrown by left-handed pitchers. In his career against Scooball, he's just 2 for 9 with a home run and 2 RBI, 3 Ks, no walks. That's a 222, 556 slash line, 778 OPS. But he has just one single in 6 at-bats against Scooball this season with all 3 of those strikeouts. With Scooball potentially getting 2 starts in this best-of-5 series, Game 2, and the potential series clincher in Game 5, whoever wins this matchup could potentially give his team a leg up towards advancing to the ALCS.
By the way, Kyle Raleigh is the first Mariners player to ever lead the entire Major League Baseball in home runs. Ken Griffey Jr. did it 4 times, but he only led the AL. But he was the first person to take over, and we had some good competition in there too. Ohtani had 55, and Schwarber had 56.
There you go.
And I feel like those names will be talked about in this postseason once or twice.
Anthony, what made you say that?
I feel like it's not a spoiler alert.
Got the dark
that's
there,
common
Rabbi?
knowledge. It's common knowledge. Going out on a big limb there. Anthony, who's your star watch for the Tigers who really proposed the adage, it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And it's like literally finish, not literally regular season, but finish, where we get to right now. Record-wise, they had the worst September ever for any playoff team, which cost them the AL Central to the Cleveland Guardians. And then the Tigers canceled them in 3 games to the playoffs to get here. So I think we just mentioned who the Tigers' ace is. Let's talk about Mr. Scooball.
Before Cam Schlittler's amazing performance, we was kind of raving about Taylor Scooball's Game 1 to start
it's still pretty damn good, having 14 strikeouts, by the way. What's not to finish?
Pretty good now. But yes, Taylor Scooball's the guy I'm looking for as far as the Tigers, obviously the Tigers player to watch. Over the last 2 seasons, obviously, he's put up an ERA of 2.30, 469 strikeouts, and 387 innings. So clearly, everything starts and ends as far as the Tigers rotation with Scooball. With his 10 strikeouts on August 19th, he became the first pitcher this season to reach 200 strikeouts, and the second straight season he did that. For the regular season, 13-6, 241 strikeouts, AL leading 2.21 ERA, led the American League in pitchers WAR, ERA plus, and also led the majors in WHIP and strikeouts to walk ratio of 7.30. As you mentioned, Rabbi, in Game 1, 14 strikeouts actually set by tied the Detroit Tigers record set by Joe Coleman in 1973. The 14 strikeouts are the most. 14 strikeouts are the most in a postseason game since then. Houston Astros righty Garrett Cole's 15 strikeout performance in Game 2 of the 2019 Division Series against the Tampa Bay Rays. The last lefty with 14 strikeouts postseason game was former Pirates ace John Candelario against the Reds in Game 3 of the 1975 ALCS. Cleveland Guardians took 56 swings against Scooball and missed 26 times. That is a 46% whiff rate. That is Mariano Rivera elite levels if you was going to compare that to a closer. 28 batters, and only 2 actually hit the ball out of the infield. It was probably as dominant as it gets. I think, and I was going to say this about Cam Schlittler as well, but I can say it now with this. I go back to Roger Clemens in Game 3 in the 2000 NLCS against Seattle when Roger Clemens just mowed him down, and there were some dominant performances as far as pitching, and Game 1 is definitely up there. And it definitely set the tone because the Guardians was able to bounce back and get Game 2 before the Tigers was able to bust Game 3 open and put it into that series. He's lined up to pitch Game 2, which is ironic because he was a 9th round pick out of the 2018 draft out of Seattle University. So it's somewhat of a homecoming for Taylor Scooball in this series. But if the Tigers are going to win, they have to win the game Scooball starts. I mean, that's just pretty much a no-brainer. And he might have the luxury of being able to pitch in T-Mobile Park because that is one of the biggest stadiums in the majors. As far as home runs, I mean, I know Kyle Raleigh makes it look easy, but there aren't many guys who has that kind of power that can just hit him out of that ballpark. And it's a stadium that is notoriously pitcher friendly. So It is obviously Scuba's the guy that's going to have to lead the way for this Tigers pitching staff. But if he will love the idea of being up 1 game to none instead of having to keep them from going down 0-2, going back to Detroit for game 3 later this week.
However, I will say this for Anthony. Number one, the Mariners have a righty stacked lineup, and all but one of the home runs that Scooble has given up this year has been to righties. And let me tell you this. Against everybody else but the Mariners this year, he has a 2 ERA with 8.1 strikeout to walk ratio. Against the Mariners this year, and maybe he doesn't like pitching in his own area, 5.91 ERA with 2.6 K to walk ratio. Not great, but for the presumptive back-to-back Cy Young winner, I think anything is possible. Although we did see him in that game 5 last year against Cleveland, kind of self-destruct there. So even Superman does have kryptonite eventually. The kryptonite of both the Tigers and Mariners seems to be clutch hits. The Tigers' clutch hits stats were ridiculous because not until Thursday, the Tigers did not have 5 runs in a game and from September 10th until Thursday. And before Thursday, they were averaging 2.4 runs over their last 18 games. This is a team that has not been clutch in any way, shape, or form. Like almost everybody on that team struggled at the same time. It seemed like the only guy who was getting big hits constantly in that game series against the Indians was Javi Baez, former Met. And it's just insane because in the series until the 7th inning of game 3, the Tigers were 3 for 28 with runners in scoring position. When Seal Perez, who hit a big hit in that game, hitting the home run, got his first hit in 12 plate appearances in that postseason. So the Tigers are not anywhere near as good in hitting as they've been, and that's one of the reasons why they gave up that big lead to the Cleveland Guardians, and then might have sent Indians once or twice, in that series. So we'll see what that happens. The Seattle Mariners have never been known for their offense, and their pitching is some of the best pitching that you're going to see on there. You have aces among aces. Castillo, Ray. If Wu is healthy, good luck in this series. But the lineup is still struggling. It's a strikeout-heavy team. They had 1,446 strikeouts in baseball this year. That is the 6th most, and 3 players ranked on the top 8 in the league in punch-outs. 3 of those names very popular, very big. Cal Raleigh, Randy Arozarena, who had a 216 and 641 OPS in the last 2 months of the season. But by the way, a playoff OPS in the playoffs of 1.104. He's called Playoff Randy for a reason. That playoff OPS is only behind Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig all time in that category. And what's going to be very interesting is some of their best offensive players in J.P. Crawford and Eugenio Suarez are good, but they're not, like, you don't know if you want them late in games because Crawford made 13 errors this season. Suarez made 16 and had a total zone rating of -6. So when it comes to the late, I feel like you're not going to be seeing a slugfest. I don't know if we're going to be seeing a slugfest in any games of this series, to be completely honest with you, because we've seen some pitchers' performances like crazy. But in this series particularly, you're not going to find too many late game hits, and the offenses of both teams are the reason why. If they're going to win these series, they're going to win these series with the pitching of Tarek Skubal, the chaos of whatever AJ Hinch does after Tarek Skubal starts, and Seattle's insane pitching staff is one of the reasons why they are here and they are a threat in the postseason. All right, we have to move on, and we have to move on to the National League Series. We got some good matchups here, too. Actually, I love these matchups. Third first-time matchup in the playoffs, and we're going to talk about a game that's going to begin about an hour from now, from when we're taping. The NL Central winning Milwaukee Brewers and the Chicago Cubs. Milwaukee finished 5 games ahead of Chicago in the regular season. That's a storyline. Oh, the Chicago Cubs manager, Craig Counsell, is the winningest manager in Milwaukee Brewers history. 707 games over 9 seasons in Milwaukee. And oh, yeah, 83 miles separate the two teams. So take the I-94. The friendly confines don't apply here, my friends. Let's go. Jay, who's your star watch for the best team in baseball this season, record-wise, the 97-win Brewers?
Yeah, I mean, look, we all know that the bitter rivalry is Cubs and Cardinals, but it seems like ever since Craig Counsell went down that interstate to the other city, this rivalry's gotten a lot more testy. For Milwaukee, for me, it's Christian Yelich. I've said it before. I've basically said it, I said it in the Yankees series preview, and I'm going to say it in the next one also, the next two, the next one, yeah. I'll use the actual words here. When the calendar flips to October, your stars need to play like stars for your team to have its best chance to advance in baseball's postseason. And while the NL Central Division champion Brewers, owners, as Rabbi said, owners of MLB's best record at 97-65, are the epitome of team, and they play a very unique style of baseball. And while they had breakout performances from the likes of second baseman Bryce Terang, put up a 288, 359, 435 slash line, 794 OPS, 124 weighted runs created plus, 18 homers, 81 RBI, and a team-leading 97 runs scored and 24 steals. An all-star starting pitcher, Freddie Peralta, led the league nationally with 17 wins against just 6 losses. 270 ERA, 204 strikeouts, 10.4 Ks per 9, a 107.5 whip, and held hitters to a 195, 277, 327 slash line for a 603 OPS. It is their designated hitter who has the type of resume on the back of his baseball card that qualifies him for Star Watch here. Yelich put up a 264, 343, 452 slash line, 795 OPS, 121 rated runs created, 88 runs scored, team leading 29 homers and 103 RBI. His 3 All-Star Game selections, 2 of his Silver Slugger awards, and his only regular season MVP award happened since he came to the Brewers from Miami after the 2017 season. He's been the Brewers' best player when he's been able to put in a full season, which has not always been the case. He has a slash line of 282, 376, 480 with an OPS of 856, a 132 weighted runs created plus since coming to Milwaukee, and his top 10 in Brewers history in Baseball Reference wins above replacement, Fangraphs wins above replacement, on base, slugging, OPS, homers, walks, steals, and runs scored. The Brewers lost the regular season series to the Cubs 7-6 and had a -4 run differential. And Yelich struggled against them. His slash line was just 170, 278, 340, 618 OPS, only 2 homers, only 5 RBI, 9 runs scored over the entire 13-game regular season series, 54 plate appearances, 47 at bats. Yelich has also struggled in the postseason over his career. All 18 games has happened since he put on a Brewers uniform. And his slash line is 235, 373, 368, OPS of just 741, only 2 homers, only 3 RBI, 10 runs scored, 4 steals across 83 plate appearances and 68 at-bats. This Brewers lineup comes into the postseason on the heels of a mediocre September. They were just 12-12, and during that month, they ranked 17th in OPS, 28th in homers, 22nd in runs scored. That version will not get it done against the Cubs, let alone the Phillies or the Dodgers on the other side of the NL playoff bracket. Nor will the September version of Christian Yelich, who put up just a 224, 298, 355 slash line, 653 OPS, 2 homers, 11 RBI, 7 runs scored in 19 games across 84 plate appearances and 76 at-bats. But if the Brew Crew gets the August version of their captain, who put up a 324, 414, 559 slash line, 973 OPS, 7 homers, 23 RBI, and 26 runs scored, when the team went 21-9 and outscored their opponents by 68 runs, well, then they'll cause the presumptive World Series favorites on the other side of that NL playoff bracket, and the rest of us watching and covering the postseason, to sit up and take notice.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I feel like we saw the same thing with a lot of those teams that were really good during the beginning of the season. Milwaukee and Detroit specifically, they kind of struggled down the stretch after their hot starts. And
has there been more of a roller coaster of a regular season in recent memory?
97. I think every
No
team left in
100
the
win team.
playoffs has no 100 win team, and I don't think any team in this portion of the playoffs has anything less than 90. So it's really going to be. I think the Tigers going to be the least actually. So we'll see what happens. Anthony, speaking of 90, the 92 win Cubs are here after taking care of the San Diego Padres in the wild card in 3 games. Star watch for you as they move into this NL Norris division battle.
Excellent, Chris
Stan,
Berman.
yeah, Suzuki is someone that gets my attention, and obviously we have a lineup where you also feature Dansby Swanson and Pete Armstrong. Suzuki's name doesn't exactly
Kyle
pop out to
Tucker.
you, and Kyle Tucker. Doesn't exactly Suzuki's name doesn't pop up to you, but man, is he a key to this offense when he gets it going. For the regular season, he finished with 32 home runs, a career high, 103 RBIs. It's both 30 home run and 100 RBI season in the big leagues, and actually won National League Player of the League twice, one in May and one in late September. When he basically hit home runs in 4 straight games. He hit 2 against the Mets in that final weekend of the season, and he hit 2 more in the last 2 games in that those last games against the St. Louis Cardinals, which is funny because he had went 38 consecutive games without hitting a home run. Going back to August 2nd of the regular season, and before then he had hit 25 home runs in 77 games. Now let's tell you, he has a bit of a hot cold streak. But when he's going, this offense really takes on another dynamic because he bats in the cleanup spot more often than not. He gives this team power and an offense that is in the top 5 in all play percentage, though the slugging percentage in baseball, and hit combined 79 home runs. This is a lineup that does grind it out, that does work the pitch counts, that does get high pressure hitting, as you saw against San Diego in that deciding wild card game. But it's funny too. It's a statistic for Suzuki. One of 3 players to have entered the postseason on a 4-game home run streak. The other 2, Mike Schmidt in 1980, George Brett in 1985,
Wow.
and one more, Ryan Howard in 2007. As far as guys entering the postseason on a home run streak, and then he extended that, becoming the first player to do that in Game 1 when he hit a solo home run to tie that game, in which the Cubs would eventually win. Suzuki's power does add a great dimension to this lineup, and he's a wild card in this lineup because you think about the bigger names the Cubs throw out there. If Suzuki gets going and he's able to drive in runs ahead of him, this is going to make this what the Brewers do to counter the Cubs offense very interesting because he's someone you just can't. He becomes someone you can't pitch around, or at the very least you can't go after if he as you would do to avoid another hitter in that lineup. So Suzuki is the guy that I'm looking forward to see what exactly if he can continue this hot streak against Milwaukee, because he'll make it just a lot easier for Kyle Tucker, who's look at the lineup now, who's going to be batting third today and hitting ahead of him. But also look at Ian Happ and Cole Armstrong and Swanson further down that lineup. As far as keeping the ball moving and keeping that the Cubs lineup going.
So fighters, take your positions and let's talk about what's going to happen between 2 teams where the situation between them is about as sticky as honey right now. And you were mentioning before, Anthony, the Cubs hitting, and Seika Suzuki, Carson Kelly, they went deep in the opener, and you had RBIs by Dansby Swanson, who was covering, I think, the whole entire city of Chicago.
He was everywhere
in that series on defense.
He was everywhere in that series.
He sure was. It was insane. I was talking to you about it. It was just insane. But you had Michael Bush and Pete Armstrong doing the same thing. But a lot of this team, especially late in the season, has struggled. Matt Shaw struck out twice in Game 1, 3 times in Game 3. Chicago struck 11 times in Game 1. By the way, if Matt Shaw was with the team all during the final week or 2 of the season, maybe this would have been different. I don't know. Just saying. Anyway, and then he actually they benched Shaw in Game 2 for Moises Ballesteros. Yeah, it's interesting because Kyle Tucker who has been the best hitter in the lineup this year, 22 home runs, 25 RBIs, and he was limited with time in a calf injury. He only hit 690 after his from July onward, and including 20 appearances since his return from injury. And again, 5 home runs since July 1st, 21 RBIs, and he's only had 6 hits in the last 47 at bats over the last 2 postseasons. Not great. And Pete Crow Armstrong, since July 1st, a 686 OPS. His 274 has a 274 on base percentage, not really that high of a guy, but he had 21 to 31 homers in June and kind of petered out towards the end of the season. So who's really going to be the hero for Chicago? You might have mentioned Suzuki out there, but it's not as strong of a lineup, and that's the reason why this became from an NL Central 2-team race to kind of just the tortoise and the hare, and the hare didn't let up pretty much for the entire time for Milwaukee. Now, Milwaukee's pitching lately is an issue because, especially with Freddie Peralta, he's been good this season. He's not going to win the Cy Young. That's probably going to go to Mr. Paul Skeens, him of 10 wins and all. But in 3 starts, Peralta struggled, and the other 4 was excellent. So he had a 4-inning, 5-run game against Chicago on July 30th. That was his worst start of the year. He walked 5 over 6 innings against the Cubs in the May 5th start. It's interesting because the Cubs are a patient team, and that's a problem because Peralta has walked 20 batters in 38 and 2/3 innings against Chicago over the past 2 seasons. And you mentioned it, Jay, 12 and 12 in September. And you have a rotation that had injuries to Brandon Woodruff, who, by the way, will not be on the postseason roster for this series, and Jose Quintana, who will be on the postseason roster for this series, making him probably lining up for game 3 or game 2 out there. And then, I mean, Robert Gasser is a good pitcher, but he is susceptible. He's a ground ball pitcher, which helps out. I'm sorry, Quinn Priester is a guy who is a ground ball artist, is susceptible. He'll probably get the 2 or 3 start. And then you might be starting Jacob Mizorowski, who since his All-Star appearance, all of 6 games back in the All-Star game in July, he's been struggling. And he is on the postseason roster, so he will be used in some way, shape, or form. But between, again, I hate to be negative. I've been focusing on negatives this whole day, but it's like you know how we said the big force versus the immovable object? It's kind of a small force and an object that is perfectly okay with getting out of the way. So the pitching of the Brewers and the hitting of the Cubs, remember, they didn't win those games going away. They won them with 3 runs in both of those games. I think 3 runs and 2 runs in the games that they won in game 1 and game 3, and they didn't score a run, and they only had 1 run in game 2. So the Cubs are kind of lacking offensively, and the Milwaukee Brewers might be lacking on the other side of the ball. Should be an interesting series, but there's going to be hate, and I love that.
Yeah, I was saying this with Jay, the close proximity between Milwaukee and Chicago, and the fact that these are divisional opponents, the Greg Console factor. This should be a really fun series to watch. We'll start in another 50 minutes from now, actually. I got the pregame show on in the background. The only thing this series is missing right now is the great Harry Carey and Bob Uecker. But this series should have everything else, including the kitchen sink. By the way, a good metaphor you could have used, Rabbi, is the Brahma bull and the El Matador moving out of the way, saying "Olay" each and every time. But yeah, this should be a good series.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. It's going to be very interesting. And like I said, this is really one of the bigger rivalries now in the NL. So we'll see how it goes down. Our final series, though, is 2 teams that know a lot about each other in the playoffs: the Philadelphia Phillies and the Los Angeles Dodgers. And recently, in all but 1 season since 2017, either of these teams have either had the league's best record or ended up representing the NL in the World Series. But no pressure for the 96-win Phillies and 93-win Dodgers. Jay, for the Phillies, back in the postseason dance for the 4th year in a row. Who are you looking for in Star Watch?
Well, Bryce Harper is the face of the franchise. a Rookie of the Year winner, 2 regular season MVPs, 8 All-Star nods, 4 Silver Slugger awards, an NLCS MVP award to his name, and a 325, 444, 709 slash line over the last 3 postseasons for the Phillies. But this season, the October Star Watch spotlight falls on Kyle Schwarber, who posted a 240, 365, 563 slash line, career high 928 OPS, a 152 weighted runs created plus, 111 runs scored, 108 walks, his 3rd straight season of 100 or more walks. And he led the senior circuit in homers with 56, including setting a major league record 23 as a left-handed hitter against left-handed pitchers, and all of baseball in RBI with 132. For the 2nd straight season, he had a better OPS against lefties, 964, than righties, 905, as he has worked very hard to improve his ability to hit left-handers. He had 4 home runs in 1 game this season. He won the All-Star Game MVP and is one of the leading candidates for NL regular season MVP, along with some guy in the other dugout whose name escapes me at the moment. Anthony may be able to help with that when it's his turn to bat in this preview. But the Dodgers had Schwarber's number this season. In 6 games against the defending champs across 24 plate appearances and 19 at-bats, Schwarber posted just a 158, 385, 316 slash line. It's a 700 OPS. Only a solo home run as his only extra base hit and only RBI. And the last time he faced the Dodgers in the postseason, it also did not go well. That was the 2017 NLCS when he was a Chicago Cub. He played 4 games in that series, and across 14 plate appearances and 12 at-bats, his slash line was just 167, 286, 417, 702 OPS with a solo home run, again, as his only extra base hit, only RBI, and only runs scored. Now, Schwarber has proved to be a tough out in October since coming to the city of brotherly love. He has a 220, 373, 559 slash line with a 933 OPS, a 146 weighted run created plus, with 12 homers, 17 RBI, 24 runs scored, and 26 walks in 150 plate appearances and 118 at-bats over 34 games in a Phillies uniform. His 21 career postseason home runs are the most by a left-handed hitter in Major League Baseball and the 4th most by any hitter behind Manny Ramirez, 29, Jose Altuve, 27, and Barney Williams, 22. Phillies won the season series against the Dodgers 4-2, despite a negative one run differential, and with one of those wins being the one that clinched the NL East. And while the postseason is a different animal and the Phillies have home field advantage, if the regular season version the Dodgers saw of Kyle Schwarber is the one who shows up in the NLDS, the Dodgers' chances of repeating increase. However, if the Philadelphia postseason Punisher version shows up and starts raining Schwar bombs on Dodger pitching, the Phillies are the ones who may be headed back to the NLCS for the 2nd time in the last 3 years.
I have some interesting things about the Phillies I will talk about, and Dodgers I'll talk about in this second, especially when it comes to the bullpen of that team and a little bit more on the left stats that we'll talk about. But Anthony, for the Dodgers, back in the postseason for the lucky 13th year in a row, they started their postseason shining like opalite in their 2-game sweep of the Reds in the wild card round. Star Watch, please.
I think Jay pretty much left this one it's pretty obvious.
Yeah, I gave you a batting practice. It wasn't
obvious.
quite a batting practice fastball, but I kind of left it where you could hit it.
Yeah, it was home run derby level, that's for sure. Yeah, it is my fellow anime fan and fan in arms. That's Shohei Ohtani. Look, I don't know if there's so much more you can say about Shohei Ohtani.
We're running out of words, man.
Yeah, but we're kind of running out of them at this point. 3-time MVP, could be a 4th MVP for all we know. I mean, obviously Schwarber's had a hell of a season too. But this season, 55 home runs, 1.014 on OPS, drove in 102 runs. By the way, he drove himself in half the time, which is astonishing.
Insane.
Yeah. 109 home runs as a Dodger, tied Alex Rodriguez, both 2 years with the Texas Rangers, second highest total in a player's both 2 seasons with a franchise, according to the Alliance Sports Bureau. Babe Ruth actually remains at the top of this list, 113. And his first 2 seasons has been with the Yankees 1920 and 2021. He surpassed his own LA era Dodger record for runs scored, 134. Tied Darby O'Brien this season, which goes back to 1889 for the second overall, 140. 1.6, two shy of the franchise record held by Hub Collins in 1890. 102 RBIs, as I mentioned. He drove himself in more than half the time. And before then, the lowest RBI total in a 55 home run season belonged to Mark McGwire, who knocked 123 runs and hit 58 home runs in 1997. And by the way, you forget Shohei is a two-way pitcher, a two-way player, and he's back to pitching now after a full season of just strictly DHing, recovering from Tommy John surgery. Ohtani was able to get in a couple of starts, and he went 1-1, 2.87 ERA on the mound, and joined a 50-50 club of a different level. 50 home runs and 50 strikeouts for the season, the first player to do that. In the wild card series against Cincinnati.
Hey, Anthony, just to be clear, we're talking about 50 home runs as a hitter and striking out 50 guys as a pitcher.
As a pitcher, yes.
Actually, technically, wouldn't it be the 50-50-50 club? Because he definitely struck out 50 times as a hitter.
Fair enough. That's a 50 trifecta.
I don't think he did. I'm sure he did it. I don't even need to look at this.
I'll look it up. You guys keep going.
Yeah, and by the way, how fitting that he starts out the wild card series by going deep, not once, but twice in game one, and scored a run in game two. By the way, I have to say this.
187 strikeouts as a hitter, guys. So, yeah.
Wow, a lot more than I thought.
By the way, I have to tip my hat out to the Reds for having a good season, but this was such a mismatch. From the word go. I mean, it was, even if the Mets had made the playoffs, we'll talk about them in the next segment, I don't think they would have had a chance beating the Dodgers. No. Especially when Ohtani is going and this lineup is hitting. And this is with Mookie Betts having a down year for his standards, which is insane. But he is scheduled to pitch game one later this evening in Philadelphia. And the fact that he is making his pitching debut in the postseason and year two of him playing the playoffs is just astounding. And here's the thing, and I talk about this with everybody, because I talked about this with his angle. Ohtani may not even be the most popular man, the most popular family member of the Ohtani family. Decoy, the dog, definitely has that by far.
He is competing neck and neck with Herb Street's dog. I'm telling you.
Yes, I mean, he's a video game character for Pete's sake, which is hilarious. But yes, and I had to mention this too because I am an anime fan, and I love little tidbits like this. And yes, I'm wearing an anime sweater. Evangelion 30th anniversary, I have to throw that out there. His wife for Women's Night had him actually gave the suggestion to have Sailor Moon as his walk-up music, and the organist at Dodger Stadium does play Sailor Moon theme music between innings every so often. If you watch and Rabbi, you've done this, watch the raw feed to some telecast, particularly the Dodgers, you do hear the organist playing theme songs from TV shows, and Sailor Moon does play regularly because Ohtani is a noted anime fan. So yes, he is definitely the star to watch, and this should be a really fun series. And a series between two teams who have history. I think in 08 and 09 respectively, the two teams played. And they go further back. Yeah, at least in my recent memory, but it goes further back to
the late 70s.
The late 70s. So this would be really fun. And I know the Fox A team got this series. No, the TBS got this series. Yes, the TBS has to end out this year. But yeah, this should be. I'm looking forward to all the playoff series. But this one should have a lot of high scoring compared to what we may see at the Brewers and Cubs, which may be 5 steps and maybe a couple of steps backwards. What is that? I forget the cloud of dust reference. This one may be more like a home run derby, considering Citizens Bank is a bandbox for all baseball standards, and Dodger Stadium definitely could be hitter friendly, particularly during night games. So yeah, this is going to be a really fun I expect a high scoring series. But yeah, I mean, pick your points as far as Schwarber, who by the way started the division series last year against the Mets, hitting a 400-foot bomb off of Kodai Senga, and then you have Ohtani. These are two of the best leadoff hitters you could possibly have, who are also MVP candidates for their respective.
In terms of the ability to put the ball out of the yard to lead off the first inning, yeah.
I think we've hit a lot of tangents on this show, but I will say this. Look up the words 1977 Game 4, ninth inning, and you'll just talk about how crazy the Dodgers and Phillies postseason history is too. They have so many times when they intersect when they're really good, and this is another one of them.
Yep.
Game 1, especially when you have a 5-game series between two teams who, in my opinion, if these are the two teams I would probably bet to win the World Series this year. Game 1 is important, and I think the one thing that you just mentioned is literally what you just talked about. Shohei Ohtani on the mound and on the mound only because of the fact that this is a game where he's going to be pitching for the first time in the postseason. And the numbers just wasn't a handful of starts, by the way. It was a 14 starts throughout the summer, and he had a 2.87 ERA, 6.89 strikeout to walk ratio, which is just definitely insane. And if you're wondering, if you haven't seen Ohtani this year from the picture that you saw back when he was with the Angels in 2023, it's better. He had a four-seamer that clocked in at 98.4 this year. That was only 96.8 in 2023. His usage rate on this four-seamer has gone up over 5.5%. Now it's 38.6% out there. When he was with the Angels, he was throwing more than 60% fastballs and sweepers. Now he kind of really circles it out a little bit. Even against right-handed pitchers, it's now even less of the sweeper than it is the four-seamer. One big thing to notice, he pitched against the Phillies on September 16th. He threw 5 no-hit innings, 5 strikeouts. But they only let him go pretty quickly because of the fact that they might wanted to see him. They knew they might see him again. He threw 50% heaters in that game. And I'm very curious to see what the Dodgers are going to do tonight with Ohtani. They've said that they're going to give Ohtani carte blanche. They're going to treat him like a regular postseason pitcher. But for a sign of issue, what do you do is really the next question. Now, what's interesting enough is, and I'm going to also put a little bit of Jay's thing here, the left-handedness of this team. And one thing, now again, Schwarber has the good numbers, having all those lefty-lefty home runs, but the Phillies have struggled against left-handed pitchers this year, only an average of 250. And even though the Dodgers, and again, they're going to need a good outing from Ohtani because that bullpen, not good this year for the Dodgers, probably their weakest point. But because of the fact that you can go with the shorter rotation, they're going to have 5 left-handed relievers in that bullpen. You have Tanner Scott, Jack Dreyer, Alex Vesia, but Anthony Banda, who is also in the rotation, but who's also going to be coming out of that bullpen? One soon-to-be retired Clayton Kershaw. So you might be seeing a Kershaw versus Schwarber matchup. You might be seeing so many little things in this game one that could be very interesting. Oh, and by the way, because of the fact that we're just saying, oh my God, these are going to be really, really great matchups and stuff like that, Christopher Sanchez is going to be pitching on the other side of the ball for game 1 in that game. And this is just going to be an insane matchup because Sanchez's workhorseness has been really good this year too, and the game between these two is going to be just a chess match. And a lot of 5-game series really are decided by game 1. This is one of them, and if you're going to watch, if you have to have like gun to your head, give me one game to watch today, that would be the game.
By the way,
the Phillies at game 1. And again, it's very rare to see the Dodgers with that home field advantage in any series. There's probably going to be having it for 2 of them.
By the way, you mentioned Christopher Sanchez. There's one game that stood out when you talk about him being a workhorse and being competitive. Go back to just a few weeks ago against the Mets, and he allowed 4 runs and they no-hit them the rest of the way in that game. I mean, look, if he's able to avoid the big inning, when he's giving up a quicker number, the guy is lights out, as good as anyone. Even his previous outing against the Mets is a game I went to at Citi Field. He was money for 4 innings. They just kind of ran into a wall in the 5th inning, and the Mets was able to kind of take advantage of that. And that's kind of been his MO this season. When he's been able to avoid that big inning, he has been absolutely phenomenal for the Phillies. And yeah, I know you're Yankee fans, and the bullpen has not been great. You have not seen the Dodgers bullpen as much as I have this season. And Rabbi,
Not
obviously
good.
you've seen
Not
as
good.
well. For a moment,
No.
I thought Tanner Scott was going to be the league MVP, was going to be the most valuable player for the Padres because it felt like just as the Dodgers was kind of pulling away from that division race, the bullpen completely was squandering. They actually squandered 2 games against the Diamondbacks. They kept the Padres hanging around the final stretch of that season. And Tanner Scott has not been good. I mean,
No.
I think it's getting to the point where, yeah, if you're the Dodgers, you're gonna need Clayton Kershaw or someone to eat up innings, or at least shorten the game up for a bullpen that has had a hard time
However,
getting out when they've been called on to get those extended innings.
Yeah, here's the thing. I mean, Rabbi, you mentioned Ohtani start against Philly, and obviously, in terms of the context of this series. But what interested me, I went to look it up because I wanted to see because I hadn't followed his pitching, as analytically as I do elsewhere. His last start of the season, which was game 157 on September 23rd against Arizona. This pitching line is more in line of what we're used to seeing from Ohtani. And if this is what he brings today, it should scare the hell out of the rest of the National League. He went a full 6 innings in that loss to Arizona, gave up 5 hits, struck out 8, walked nobody, 91 pitches, 63 for strikes. That is almost 70%. That right there, that's the kind of pitching performance that we saw from Ohtani before he had his surgery, when he was mowing down National League hitters left and right. If he brings that type of pitching performance today, ooh boy.
American League hitters left and right, because he was still an angel at that point, by the way. So it could have
Well,
been
I
American
mean,
League
yeah,
and
fair
National
enough,
League. One thing I will say this though is when you have Ohtani, Snell, who's had a great season, and Yamamoto, who's had a pretty damn good season, I think we know that what the goal is. Get to the 7th or 8th, and
Yeah,
then hopefully.
exactly.
All right.
If they can give them length, then that mitigates the shaky bullpen.
All right, let's move on to let's finish strong with a team that has no idea how to finish strong. That would be the New York Mets. If you're watching,
Anthony, come on, that's a really nice play on words. You got to give Rabbi credit for that.
I know.
If you're watching, you can I finish?
Go ahead.
If you're watching, you probably would have some idea of the numbers, but let me reiterate quick. 45-25 through June 13th, best record in the MLB at the time, 96.2% odds to make the playoffs, 38-55 the rest of the way. Third team since 1995 to start that good and not make the playoffs, but now it's a 12-team field. Also, only team in 2025 that went winless when trailing after 8 innings. 0-70. Yep. As a ton of their coaches ended up with the fate of Ophelia yesterday, dead to the Mets, read Shakespeare. I'd say more, but our resident Met fan, Anthony, has a lot more to say.
Yeah, look, the Mets has been a butt of jokes. Even Jimmy Kimmel got his fun on this, but I can't defend this, okay? ESPN had it best. They are a $340 million disaster. When you start out the season they had, and Rabbi, you just mentioned it, when you go 45-24 through the first part of the season and go 38-55 the rest of the way, you kind of did it to yourself, don't you think? I mean, it started on 2/12 with Kodai Senga injury, and it kind of just snowballed. I mean, because the pitching was kind of the main culprit to the Mets stumbles. You had the injuries, you had the inconsistencies. They lost Griffin Cannon towards Achilles. They lost Tyler McGill in the season as well. Ricky Montez was, a lot of people saw, was a bad signing from the start. Started the season on the IL and then ended the season on the IL as he suffered a season injury. Singer, for his part, was never the same pitcher when he came back from his injury. So you got to a point where you had literally not 1, not 2, but 3 guys called up from the minors, and Nolan McLean, Brandon Sport, and Jonah Tung called in the middle of August to basically save the Mets from themselves in the middle of a pennant race. And while McLean has been great, Sports been kind of up and it's been good, not great. Jonathan Tong has always been the more erratic of the three. And to be fair, the Mets did everything. And I said this before. This is despite having a monster season from Juan Soto, an unbelievable season from Pete Alonso, a 30-30 season from Francisco Lindor. This is a team that had a lineup that was very top heavy, and the bottom of the production literally dropped after you got from that got past that fifth spot. Where it was Brandon Nimmo, even Jeff McNeil to an extent, and then you look at what some of the missed opportunities as far as the Mets winning games. The Mets didn't lose the playoff spot on the last day of the regular season to the Marlins. I mean, that seemed to become a Met tradition at this point. But they lost it, losing 2 out of 3 to the Nationals the previous weekend at home in 2 winnable games. Or how about losing 3 out of 4 to the Marlins in Citi Field after sweeping the Phillies and getting themselves back into the division race? They were actually 4 games back and still had 4 head-to-head matchups against the Phillies left with a month left in the season. Or how about losing 2 out of 3 to the Cincinnati Reds on the road, which, by the way, played a big part in a tiebreaker scenario because the Mets sweep that series. The Mets get in because they would have had a tiebreaker edge, but instead, Cincinnati was able to win the next 2 games and also get tiebreakers from other areas. There was not 1, not 2, but 3 separate 7-game losing streaks during the course of the season, and an 8-game losing streak going into the month of September. By the way, that was started with that losing 2 out of 3 to Cincinnati, then getting swept 4 straight by the Phillies, and then losing 2 more games to the Texas Rangers, who had their own September meltdown in order to miss the postseason. This is the Mets all season. When you talk about, and by the way, the purge have already started as far as the bench coaching. Pretty much everyone, with outside of a couple of exceptions, is gone. That includes pitcher coach Jeremy Hefner. That includes much maligned hitting coach Andy Chavez. So a lot of
Eric
people,
Chavez, yes.
Eric Chavez, sorry. That has complained about the Mets approach to every at bat. You saw sometimes swinging, hacking at the first pitch almost immediately, including especially the pitchers who couldn't find a strike zone at times. There was a lot of things. There was a tight defense that we saw real ugly head time and time again at the worst possible moments. There was obviously the bullpen, and even the trade deadline acquisitions that did not work out well. Ryan Helsley was a disaster, but much of the second half time with the Mets. Gregory Soho was okay at times, but then he would become a culprit to giving up big innings. Obviously, that's the first matchup, the final week against Miami, has a good example of that. Tyler Rogers was okay, but he would give up a lot of soft contact with bad luck, landing to some runs all season long. And when you look at the Mets in a nutshell, they became who they really were, and that was a team that just could not get out of its own way and really didn't deserve to be a playoff team. I'm just going to be honest as a Mets fan. They didn't deserve to be a playoff team because they couldn't beat the teams that they should have beaten throughout the regular season. And then you look at, and Rabbi, you threw this out. 0-68 after 8 innings, am I correct?
70, I believe, is what the number was. Yep,
Only team did not have a comeback in that situation,
The only team that I have
right?
a come from behind, the only team that I have a come from behind win, thrown after 8 innings. And this is, and I said this, and yes, Carlos Mendoza is going to be back next season, but this is a team that needs to do some serious soul searching. And there was things I'm missing. Obviously, you didn't have a JD Martinez, a veteran presence in that locker room. You didn't have Geez, my mind's just going blank for a second.
If you're thinking of Jose Iglesias, don't say
they didn't have an energy guy like that.
Yeah, you didn't have Jose Iglesias. You didn't have Jose Iglesias. You didn't have. There was so many things that last year's team kind of had as far as the little things that this team was missing, and that was with the big guy, the big name, and Juan Soto being in the lineup. And this, like I said, this team, this organization as a whole needs to take a big step back. And by the way, Steve Cohen has sent an apology to the fans. The fans don't want to hear that, okay? That just add an insult to injury because you're apologizing to a team you helped put together that didn't get the job done on the baseball field. And then that's just what it is. This team had no business having to scrape their way to a playoff spot and going into the final month of the season, and they had to take care of the business.
Mm-hmm.
And it just goes to show you that money doesn't buy wins. And obviously in baseball, we've seen that time and time again. But in this case for the Mets, they really are going to have to spend an offseason figuring out where it went wrong. They have to revamp their starting pitching without question. Problem is, the free agent market for starting pitchers is a little bare, so they might have to open up the wallet a little bit. I know that is something that they try to avoid. But like I said, I don't know. There isn't much I can say that hasn't been said the last several days since this happened. Other than I can't defend them. That's pretty much what it is. I can't defend this team. As far as what happened, what they didn't get done, as far as being a bundle of jokes. Because hey, look, you did it to yourself. At the end of the day, you're not you cannot consider yourself a good baseball team, but you can't take care of your own business on the field to the point where you're finding yourself scoreboard watching and being in a position you probably shouldn't have been in the first place. So, I mean, you guys might have to cut me off here.
I'm cutting you off. I'm cutting you off now, or else I'm never going to be able to finish the show. But I will say this though, and I think you kind of also mentioned it in terms of what the Reds did in that series against the Dodgers, saying that they didn't belong. Not only in those Mets collapses of 2007, 2008, that you had the team like the Phillies kind of catch them and get the division. The Mets had to suck, and the Phillies had to be great. The Reds were kind of mediocre to get that final wild card spot. And that's what makes it worse because of the fact that the Mets could have literally played not even 500 ball. They could have played 450 ball and gotten themselves into the postseason. Yep. And now a lot of introspection needing to be done before we can even get to the free agent market. And one of those names on the Mets wish list to re-sign on the free agent market, Jay Kaplan, is Pete Alonso.
Yeah, I mean, this is the number one question for the Mets in the offseason, and it's not an easy question to answer. And it seems like we had this conversation last year at this time, and then again in our MLB preview show in April. I said on that show that I don't know if the signing of Juan Soto had anything to do with the Polar Bear taking the 1 year plus player option to return to Queens, but if I was Mets head of baseball ops David Stern, I'd want a guy whose worst home run RBI OPS season was the 34 homers, 88 RBI, and 788 OPS Alonso had in 2024. I'd want that guy batting behind Soto. And if I was Pete Alonso, I'd definitely want to come back home knowing I'd be hitting in, either in front of or behind Soto. I closed my thoughts on Alonso on that show by saying that if he replicated his 2021 to 2023 three-season average of 250, 338, 513 slash line, 851 OPS with an average of, he averaged 41 homers, 114 RBI, and an RBAT plus of 134, then I think the Mets would say that he more than adequately provided the line of protection that Juan Soto was looking for. We'll check back in September. Well, it's October, but as we check in on what may be Alonso's last season in Queens, he topped all of his 2024 numbers and then some, posting numbers that were almost spot on for that 3-year run I mentioned. He played in every game. His slash line was better, 272, 347, 524. His OPS was better, 871. His home run total was down slightly, just 38, but his RBI total was better, team leading 126. His RBAT plus number was better, 142. He led the National League with a career high 41 doubles, and his hard hit percentage was also a career best, 54.5. He also took the Mets' career home run lead from Darryl Strawberry and moved up to third in Mets' career RBI behind Straw and David Wright. Alonso bet on himself and won, So as he goes into free agency, which he was probably going to do no matter what type of season he had, with a terrific walk year under his belt and no urgency to give the Mets any type of hometown discount to return, especially as, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, Scott Boras is his agent?
It sure is.
Yeah. Especially as a Scott Boras client, and with the massive, as Rabbi mentioned earlier in the show, $500 million extension Toronto handed to Vladimir Guerrero Jr., which reset the first baseman market in Alonso's favor. All of that should result in him getting a contract better than the 2-year, $54 million guarantee he'd agreed to the first time he dipped his toe into the free agency pool. Now, look, the Mets can say that Alonso is another year older, and he took a step back defensively, based on that, they could see if he'd be amenable to spending more time at DH if he comes back, while they wait to see how the market shakes out for him. Though considering the way Alonso has long prided himself on his defense, despite a couple of really bad plays in the field at the end of the season, that might not be an inducement to return. Alonso may not like it, but his defense did get worse as the season went on. He had issues throwing the ball to both home plate and as well as to first base when pitchers had to cover balls he had to range to get. That range fell to the bottom 3% in Major League Baseball per Baseball Savant, and per Fangraphs, he ranked last among qualified Major League first basemen in both defensive runs saved and outs above average, -9 for both. That would indicate that he has reached the point in his career where he should be spending more time as the DH than just the 3 games he did this season. All that being said, if the Mets let him walk, his bat would be very difficult to replace, both on its own and as line of protection for Soto, who, as I mentioned at the top, was very upfront about how important that was for him, and Alonso more than provided it this season. It's never a good look for an organization to walk away from a homegrown star. But with his part in the collapse, coupled with his deteriorating defense and the fact that he'd already set the franchise's career home run mark, the opportunity is there for the Mets to say, thank you for your service and good luck with your future endeavors. On the flip side, Alonso has always said how much he's truly loved being a Met, and he reiterated that in the clubhouse after the season finale, saying, quote, I mean, every single day it's been a pleasure coming to work and putting on the orange and blue. I've really appreciated and been nothing but full of gratitude every single day. So, I mean, nothing is guaranteed. We'll see what happens. I love being a Met. Hopefully, they've appreciated me the same, end quote. Personally, if I'm making the call, I do what I can to bring him back. It'll be more expensive, and you'll need to convince him to DH more, but in my humble opinion, he's earned it.
I think it's not really a question of what the Mets would do to bring him back. I think that's obvious. It's a question of, number one, what will Alonso, like, not only is there not going to be a hometown discount, but because of the negotiations that went through last year and how public they were, it's probably going to be a hometown tariff that's added to Pete Alonso's number this year. And one thing that is interesting to me, and I know obviously he was going to go into free agency, but we saw the same thing with Juan Soto last year. I'm not a fan of mentioning immediately in your last press conference right after the game that you're going right into free agency. It's just not a good look. Because Soto did it, Alonso did it, Alex Bregman, who actually is in that same ballpark.
Garrett Cole did it when he left Houston.
Yeah, I don't like that, and that's something that's a bad sign for me.
It's not good optics.
No, but again, what Scott Boras client actually gives a fuck about optics. Anyway, so one of the things that's going to be interesting about this offseason is, again, it is a very bad market in terms, not a great market in terms of pitching, and really a lot of the names that you would have to get are trade candidates. So as much as I could talk about a Mackenzie Gore from Washington or a Joe Kelly from Minnesota, I'm not really inclined to do that right now. So what I'm going to do is talk about what they have and what they probably could get rid of. Again, I think there's a lot of ways to say what's going to happen with this team, but I think one of the first ways to say that we're moving on from Pete Alonso. I don't think they should do that, but if they're going to say we need a little bit of a change, unfortunately, the first change would be kind of get rid of one of the Met faces of the Mets, because Lindor's not going anywhere and Soto's not going anywhere. So here's two other team names that can go somewhere via trade. Kodai Senga, who was kind of the belle of the ball in 2023 when he had his Rookie of the Year campaign, is a pretty cheap value and a good reclamation project if they want to keep him or they want to give him to somebody else. He's owed $28 million over the next 2 seasons. That is a team-friendly contract, and that trade value can get you some of that bottom of the lineup protection that you might want in the near future, or maybe just get you another starter to put into the pot, which is they're going to need in 2026. The other one is a name that'll be a little more hurtful to the Met fans, and that's Jeff McNeil. He had a good 2025 campaign, played a bunch of different positions, has 1 year, $15.75 million left on his contract. There's a club option for 22-27. So those names are probably the two names that you might see gone via trade. You can't get rid of them via free agency. The problem with the pitching is it's a small problem. Like, you're going to need to keep the young guys in there. McLean is probably sewn up a rotation spot in 2026. I think Strait is definitely given himself a rotation spot. Jonathan is probably there, but I would like to see him start in the minors next year if you could help it, just because of the way his season ended. Plus, you have Clay Holmes, who had that great 161 start and will be a year ahead in terms of getting back into the starter mentality. You have David Peterson, who's had a good run, although he struggled late in the season. And you have Sean Manaea, and McGill is going into Tommy John, but you might have him back in the end. And you also have Christian Scott, speaking of someone who's Tommy John, who had Tommy John in 2024, who could become an option. This is a problem and a help, because you don't have it covered there. You might have to have a lot of work done, but these are projects. And unfortunately, as the Mets didn't realize in 2024, they are projects, not finished products, and they can actually work on them with someone new at the helm in 2026. The bullpen is what worries me the most. Now, Edwin Diaz has been probably the Mets' best closer, maybe since John Franco, and maybe to other people, maybe ever, even though he's been given a lot of a heart attack to many people out there. He can opt out, and then now you have a second big free agent. I think he's more important than Alonso in the grand scheme of things, to make sure he stays back there. Reed Garrett and Hunter Brazaban are probably going to stay in this team because they were a good setup duo. But Roger Soto and Helsley are gone. Goodbye.
Probably.
They're never coming back. They're going to be lucky to get decent contracts with the next team that they're on. And considering how New York players do on other teams, they'll probably do great. Doesn't matter overall, but it's a lot of work that needs to be done with this team. And David Stearns, who is very much on the hot seat, along with the manager Carlos Mendoza next year, they have a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. All right, that does it for our show. For Jay Kaplan and Anthony Strait, I'm Stephen Rabinowitz, whose album, The Life of a Show Host, is out on Spotify right now. By the way, if you did not know, I snuck in all 12 tracks of Life of a Show Girl today in the show as we were going along. So if you come back, please take a look at that. Yeah, Life of a Show Girl is the final track, and they just put it in now. So find us live
October 13th.
No, it's out. It went out October 3rd.
Really?
It's out now, actually.
Yeah, it's out now.
Okay. Let's actually do it on the 13th of the month, since that's her favorite number.
It's October 3rd.
Yeah, it's literally broke Spotify's streaming
one
record.
day. Yeah, it did. Broke the
surprise.
one-day streaming record. 12 tracks, all ready to go. Find us live on Facebook.com/OnTheSportsLines, on demand at YouTube.com/OnTheSportsLines, and on the platform currently known as X, but formerly known as Twitter, Jay.
Our handle there is at ONTA Sportslines, where you'll find a link to each new show, like today's, along with tidbits and nuggets from the world of sports that we think are worth your time to check out. This morning, I posted a link to a story that Ian O'Connor of The Athletic wrote about Yankees manager Aaron Boone in the aftermath of the Bronx Bombers AL Wildcard Series win in Game 2 over the arch-rival Boston Red Sox. As one of the few people who follow and cover the Yankees and have backed Boone, even when there are calls for his head by the fans and the media, the second there's even a whiff of a hint of that the team is not resembling the 1927 Murderers Row edition, this story perfectly encapsulates why Boone is absolutely the correct manager for this Yankee team in this day and age in baseball. Yes, some of his X's and O's decisions have caused consternation, but he takes the heat for his players, refusing to throw them under the bus, even if he gets eviscerated for it. He does not care. He firmly believes that it's not his job to save face or make himself look good. And while he protects them publicly, he does hold them accountable in private. And that's how it should be, regardless about what those outside the locker room think and feel. It's the reason Aaron Judge and everyone on this team will run through an outfield wall for him. The section on how Boone protected Garrett Cole after his start in last year's World Series says it all. It's a well-written piece and worth your time to check out, whether you bleed pinstripes or not.
And one other thing I would like to say is never, if you like what Cam Schlittler, Ben Rice, and a lot of this Yankee team has done, never criticize Brian Cashman again. Please, thank you, and good night. We will see you next time on the Sports Lines. Enjoy the games this weekend, everyone.
Have a good one.
Have a good one.